Well, hey everybody, I'm back about radios, and I know I just finished a video where I was working on this radio. It came with a 1-inch faceplate, and I was able to get it into a 1/2-inch faceplate, so it still protrudes a little ways out of the dash. And I'm going to try this one more time. I'm going to take a third shot at it and see if I can't get this down to flush. What I ran into the last time was that there isn't enough space inside behind the radio. The ducts for these heater vents get in the way. And I'm a little reluctant to start cutting into them. There's not a lot of working room inside the dash. So my plan for right now is I'm going to take out the console, the entire console, pull out the radio, remove the heater controls, pull the console out, and get the console on the bench to see if I can make a modification. I had some suggestions from a viewer, comments that gave me a couple of thoughts, and I decided to try and take one more run at it, I'll call it. So here goes. As I dig into this job, step 1 is disconnect the battery so there's no power on anything. Step 2 is block the wheels so that the car can't roll. Block the wheels because the parking brake will be manipulated on and off at different times, and the shift lever has to be pulled out of park, or it helps to be pulled out of park. So no power, blocked wheels, and then I guess I'm ready to dig in. I have the shift plate off already and the shift knob because of the other issues I've had with the shift plate. I'll get that figured out here pretty soon. But having the shift plate off makes it easier to get the bezel off because this lower edge tends to get caught under the shift plate. So this works a lot easier. And you really do want to keep track of these and try to get them back in the right places. In fact, I've seen in the service manual a specific caution about that on the console. Some of these have washers under the heads, some of them have flanged head screws, and you want to try as best you can to get them back where they came from. Okay, so you get those 2 screws out so it gets the console unhooked from the base. You get these out. There are a couple of 7mm ones here. Now normally I would bag these fasteners and label them, but I think because I'm going to try to have this all done in a few hours, I'm going to lay these out very carefully and set them aside where I'll remember. Now I've still got some wires to take off here, connectors. Now there are connectors down here, but until I get it up a little bit, it's really hard to reach the latches. So releasing the latches on these connectors is one of the toughest parts of the whole job, I think. You don't want to break them. You have to release them without breaking them, without breaking the switches. So you got two clips and you got to get them both released and pulled out. There we go. All right. It's hard on the old wrist. Okay. And you need to have this lid open. I've learned that before. If the lid isn't open, it won't come loose. Alright, and there's two 10 millimeters here to put back. Here at the back of the shifter. Now, as I do this and take this apart, a couple of thoughts or cautions. This car is a 1985, and so it doesn't have any airbags, passive restraints. And I've been looking at service manuals for newer models, and I think it was a 91 that I saw, that has airbag sensors mounted inside the console to different brackets. And there are procedures for disabling the airbag system when you work on these so that you don't accidentally trigger it. On my car, it isn't necessary for me to dig in and do that. But be cautious. If you've got a car that's got airbags, watch for that. Second thing is, while it may seem trivial, the brackets and structure in the console can be important. In fact, the Metra people were advising me that I don't mess with the bracket, that I don't remove the bracket in the console up in the front. And I mentioned to them that I might modify it, and they said modify but don't remove. And you know, there are a couple of steel reinforcements and some things that tie it down, and I'll tell you from being in the auto industry, you know, one of the things that is important is crash performance. If you ever crash the car, it's supposed to crush in a certain way, and some of these different brackets may contribute to the structural performance of the car in a crash and protect you. So you don't kind of want to go willy-nilly cutting things out. You want to be a little bit careful. I think I have all the fasteners out. I'm going to pull it out of park to give me a little more working room here. But at this point, the wires are unhooked. The bolts are out. I have to watch out for the heater controls here. Let's see if we can pop this guy out of here. When I did this the last time, the seats were out, so it was easier. But it's not too bad. I just have lots of wires and connections and things to look out for here. Get it up over the top of the parking brake, and we're out. Here's the console sitting on my workbench with the current radio setup bolted in place, so that I can see how much clearance I need and what I need to do. And right now it has a 1/2 inch faceplate in it that I'd like to get to 0. So the question is, what do I need to do? You can see right here on this corner I've got, oh goodness, you know, 1/8 of an inch. And that was the limit to me getting it in any deeper. On this side it looks like I have a lot more, but I also know that down here at the bottom is where the antenna cable comes, so there is some restriction in length there. And then the bracket has been bent back, but there's not enough room for me to go another 1/2 inch. So I think what that means is that, one, I need to come in here and bend that bracket flatter. I'm going to leave it in here to let it keep the structural strength laterally to hold this together. As I mentioned in the car, these brackets can have an effect on safety when you're crashing, if you get into an accident and the vehicle crashes. And on my 85 it might be less important, but if you get to the cars with airbags, then these braces could have an influence on how the airbag sensors operate. Crash things are very sensitive, and you really want to watch out for them. So I'm going to keep the bracket, and then let me show you something here. This is my old broken console. For those who followed me long enough that they know the history of this car, the reason this car was parked for 25 years was that somebody tore the custom radio out, and they broke the console in the process, and that's actually why the original owner parked it. Was things were broken, and he went out, instead of fixing it, he went out and bought a new car. Seems weird, but he must have had the money, and so he did. But if you look at my original console, which had a Kenwood radio and apparently a graphic equalizer also, see, if you see these, these ducts are nicely rounded. In here, you can see the ducts are not nicely rounded. They've been pushed in. And I noticed that, but kind of forgot about it. It looks to me like somebody put heat on them, softened them up, and then pushed them in to get some more clearance. And I think I'm going to follow that mold, or that method. I think I'm going to try to decide how much space I need, and then come in here with my heat gun and soften these up and push the corners back in. This side maybe I don't need as much, but if I get it in a ½ inch further, I'll be just about up against. So I'm going to need a little, I probably will be up against, and then, so I'm going to mark these and then use the heat gun. I thought about doing this in the car, but frankly, the thought of going in there with all the wiring and the carpeting and everything else with a heat gun that, I think my heat gun is rated for 1,000 degrees. You don't want to set the car on fire, and you don't want to melt anything, so I'm going to do it here on the bench where I have a little more working room and the situation's better controlled. And I can see exactly how much I need. Now if I'm going to do this on this one, see, I'm going to use a Sharpie. It's black on black, but whatever. The minimum that I need is kind of, see, I'm going to go a ½ inch. And I did go measure from the front of from the duct that goes into here back to the bracket from the back of the shifter, and measured here, and it's 19½ inches to the from the shifter up, which actually looks like these ducts probably just barely touch. They don't. You would think they would go inside, but they apparently don't go inside. They just get up close and roughly flush. So putting a little bit of push on the back of these brackets, or the back of these ducts, really shouldn't be a big deal, but let's see how this goes. So I'm going to just mark that so I know how far over I need to be. I'm going to try this. I've got a push stick and my heat gun. And get her started, see if we can warm it up, and then I'm going to see if I can push in. And I'm going to start by using the low and see if that's enough. It's as low as 600 degrees and high as 1,000, so I would guess that plastic's going to melt around 200, or really soften if you get much over 180 or 200. That's just a guess. I don't know what the spec is, but. going to hold that until it cools, because it kind of wants to spring back. See how much we get. I can always go back and hit it again. Now this one was the side that had a lot of clearance, so it should be okay, but yeah, that looks alright so far. I'll go ahead and do this one and then I'll try it. Put my heat shield down here so I don't get anything else on fire. Getting hot. Let me give that one a little bit more. See if this is enough. Let her cool off. I would say by eyeball it's not quite enough, but I'm getting close. That side's got lots of room. That side's just about on a ½ inch. I'm going to take another shot at that and try and get just a little bit more. Yeah, that looks like I got it. So now then, if I come off of this corner is still going to be rather close, but yeah, right there off the top, I'm 5/8, so I'll have an extra 1/8 of an inch. I'm a little bit short down in this other corner, right there. So there's one more spot. I have to go down just a little lower, but this side's okay. This side I've got 3/4 of an inch, and down below I've got 1 inch plus where that antenna connector goes. So this side I think is fine. This side I need to go just a little lower. Push that guy in a little bit. Gloves so I don't burn myself. Got a stick, which is actually, you know, the square corners on the end of this cedar 1x2 is just about right for doing this kind of work. Just need to get the plastic soft enough that it'll move, and then hold it until it cools off and hardens. That's actually not bad. Okay, and I know the camera angle, you probably don't get a good look, so I've pushed it in here, and I pushed it in a little bit there. Take one more look at it here with the radio in place. Just make sure we got the clearance. I know I should, I need to change faceplates, but I thought let's do it with the old faceplate first and make sure we get the clearance we need, and then I'll switch faceplates and I'll verify it. We'll make sure it's good before I go back toward the car. Alright, whew, lots of room now. Yeah, I can get my big stick in there if I need to. It's more pushing on it than I wanted to do, but it does appear I've got 5/8 there. I have more than that at the bottom now. I'll still need to come back here and bend that bracket. Now let's see if I can get this bracket redone a little bit here. I'm gonna try it this way with a channel lock and a vice grips. You don't want to just twist on it by itself, or you'll probably break the plastic. So get down here a little further. See if that looks like enough. Oh yeah, that's plenty. That's plenty. I got another 1/2 inch, so. And I'm above the bottom of the bracket, which is above the carpeting. My only other worry would be that you run into something else, but I don't think there's anything there. There we go. One here. Sure works a whole lot easier this way than when it's installed in the car. And I gotta unbend these tabs again. I'm gonna wear the tabs out if I keep going too long here, but I think I'm okay. Form them back into shape a little bit with my fingers here. Alright, so then I've got this piece. This one has 4 screws in it down inside. So I need to pop those screws out of there. Okay, so now, this is kind of where I was. This is kind of fun because this one has latches down inside here. So you have to release the latch, and you need to get the front end off. Ooh, that one came off pretty easy. It didn't bite in very much. It's easier than getting it apart the last time. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but this one didn't fit as tight as the last time I did this, so I'll use a putty knife in here. And there we go, work it apart. Well, that looks okay. I'm going to go into my kit here and replace that 1/2" guy with a flat one and see how that does. And this one doesn't, this one, because it's flat, doesn't have any place for screws. I need to make sure that it really does latch in. Well, the old one and the new one, this faceplate latches a little differently. I wanted to keep this old one because I kind of like this tray, but I don't know that that tray actually does much because the radio's basically supported by the metal case once you get it inside here. And when you put that in there and you get it centered up, I don't think that it actually touches that tray, so I don't know. I like it, but so I guess I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to take the brackets off the other one. It looks like they line up and match. The latches on here, these latches clip on in a different place between the two frames. And when I used the 1/2" on here, I could put the screws in and it didn't really matter. But on this one, it's going to matter. Also, the bolts are a little different, and these come with a square, carriage style bolt on it. I don't have the right socket for these. I'll do those a little bit more in a bit, but those brackets go in, they fit into all the grooves, and they fit okay. I mean, the kit came with a whole bunch more brackets, but it looks like it'll go together just fine. And then on the front, oh shoot, I got it upside down again. Right, let's try that again. Make sure all the holes line up before I do this. Yeah, that looks about right. Okay. And then let's see if we can snap this one together. Get that one in, get that one in. Like the man at Metra said, they're designed to snap together and really shouldn't come apart. And at this point, looks like they're snapped in place in the little grooves. Got the screws in, the pins went in, and they went in nice and tight. So that'll drop in like so. Alright, so let's go ahead and snap in the little sheet metal frame. Is there anything else I need to do first? I don't think so. I think this is everything. It's together. And now all I have to do is push in the little tabs again. And there's some there. See, those are the first round of tabs. And those dropped in, and they're okay. And then push in one of these guys. Okay, that's in there. That's in with a flat faceplate. Well, let's trial fit it here. Okay, looks like that works. It isn't locked in as nice as my other one. I've got good clearance though all the way around here. I put the tabs in as tight as I could. But things are flexing here a little bit, so let me see what I can do with that. Like I said, I really like the tray on the other one, but there just isn't any way. There just isn't any way to make that work. Well, I just don't like how much it jiggles. So I went in, this kit had brackets for everything. I mean, it was for a lot of different cars. So I picked through and I just found one here that's got a slot in it, and the radio came with some mounting screws. So this looks like it should be about the right size. They give you a mounting point for the radio that's on the heatsink for the amplifiers. So it's meant to be a mounting point. And they provided a real nice Phillips head screw with a washer and a lock washer and the right length to not hurt anything. So let's see if that helps a little. My thought is to put something underneath here that sits down on top of this bracket just to help it. And if I need to, I can adjust that bracket, or I can drill a new hole in it, or there are a number of things I could do. But it just felt like this was a little too wiggly for my taste. I picked that one because it has a pretty long slot in it. That actually looks pretty good. It's sitting right on top of the metal bracket here that I bent down, and it just picks up a little bit of the weight. Now it doesn't want to wiggle around. It should be quiet. The worst thing would be I'd put a piece of tape or foam tape under it or something to help it. Snap that in. Snap the faceplate on. So that looks pretty solid, because that plastic will just sit on that metal bracket. I've got about 1/8 of an inch to a little more up to there. I've got plenty of room there. Looks good for a trial fit. Alright, well, I'm going to take this whole set of parts and head back out to the car, and we'll see if we can get it back together. Alright, let's see if we can get this console put back together now that we got it modified for the radio. Tricky here. Let's see if we can sneak it in here. Let's see. That bracket has to go. Headed to the parking brake. Certainly have a pile of wires in the way here. Heater controls there. Okay. Kind of sneak it down in here, past the seats and the seat belts. There we go. Ways to go forward yet. Bundle of wires that was underneath the bracket. I don't know whether it should be on top or underneath, but it seems like that was holding it up, so let's put them on top. There we go, get it down on the floor. bracket's getting up underneath. Pretty close. Pretty close. So if you got it all in place, probably start running the screws. Oh, shoot. That's going to be a problem. Where did it go? Shoot. Went down underneath the carpet. Urgh. Well, that was a real trick. I dropped one of these screws, and if all things, you know, it would have to go down the hole along the crossbar on the floor pan under the carpet, and it probably went halfway down to here under the seat, and I had to fish it out with one of these. These grabbers are the greatest thing, but I was having trouble doing it, so then I got out my long bore scope and ran that down so I could see. Someday I'll have to give you a video on how that dude works, but it's a pretty cool thing. But anyway, I finally, probably took me about 15 minutes, but I got the screw back. So I can resume where I left off. I guess the answer is you shouldn't hold 3 screws in your hand when you're tightening one. Now we'll get that set down. Well, I dropped the little Phillips screw that holds the parking brake handle on, and I don't know where it went. I heard it hit the plastic, and I've spent a fair amount of time trying to track it down, but I can't tell where it went, even which direction it went. So I'm gonna have to hunt a little harder. I want to get this job done, and then I'll go looking for either try to find it or get a replacement. I don't see where it went down inside, so sometimes things are just a little bit frustrating, but it's the way it goes. Alright, so I got a couple screws here. I'll be able to run the radio in and see how it looks. Alright, let's see if we can tuck that guy in there. Alright, everything's connected that needs to be connected. checking to see how the connectors are tucked in here. They look like they're okay. Alright, so console's back in. Radio's in, snapped in good. I think that's pretty solid. That's good. Alright, now you still need to get the shift plate back, I know. Might as well put her in park here. So there it is. So heating and dimpling those ducts did the job. The face of the radio is flush right there with the outside of the bezel. That's a lot nicer looking installation. Very good. I'm happy. Now all I have to do is clean up my mess, all my tools, and put things together. Very good. That's all for now.